Which year two Oklahoma Sooners are headed for a breakout?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Spring ball is set to get underway. They'll have Oklahoma Media Days welcoming the newcomers and Ben Arbuckle and Jim Nagy and all the players that are new to the team on Wednesday. We'll react to that on tomorrow's show. But on today's show, we're going to discuss the Wes Goodwin effect and how that's going to help Brent Venables. We're also going to talk about, hey, John Mateer is pretty good, but he's going to need some help. Where's that help going to come from? But first, year two breakout candidates, because you're going to need some of these guys to step up as you lost Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Ethan Downs to the NFL draft. You lost a bunch of dudes on offense to the transfer portal. So, Jay, let's start with offense.
Yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, honestly, I think one name that to keep your eyes out for that, or eyes and ears out for, that I think could really have a big breakout, Michael Hawkins. We heard about him like crazy last year in workouts, and we heard that the players really loved what he was doing, and like everyone rallied around him when he got the job, whenever he took over. And now that he's got John Mateer in front of him, the expectation is Mateer is going to start, which I truly wholeheartedly believe Mateer is going to be leading the way because he comes in, knows the playbook. He's one of two people that knows how the play is going to be ran, what the playbook is, and what the Oklahoma Sooners are going to do under Ben Arbuckle. But I think Hawkins is truly going to benefit the most from it because he's going to not only be able to sit there, learn the offense, he's going to be a great asset on the scout team because that's where he was really tearing up our defense. But I think when he starts picking up all the stuff that he needs to pick up as far as like picking up, defenders and understanding scheme and being able, like I said, just move around and just to be able to be himself, man, I think you could see him take a massive jump this year. And when they have those moments and opportunities to truly play him, that he'll be prepared to not only take over at the time needs, but next season and beyond, he's going to be a threat.
Yeah, I like Michael Hawkins. I think he's got the potential to be a big-time player for Oklahoma. I think what also benefits him this year is having an offensive coordinator and a assistant quarterback coach that are actually going to develop him.
Yeah.
I don't think you got great development last offseason. And I think we saw the way the offense, performed in the fall as evidence of that. And I think it's just going to allow him to grow and learn a whole lot more with an experienced play caller and quarterback developer in Ben Arbuckle and John Kuzieski. And you're in an offense that is kind of quarterback friendly, in my opinion. It's, quick drops, get the ball out. It's, making decisions a lot of times pre-snap based on what you're seeing. Yep. So I like this for Michael Hawkins. And then also, man, that you cannot discount the athleticism and the speed. I mean, it's dynamic, absolutely dynamic. We saw it in the Auburn game. If he gets an opportunity to get into some games this year, it's going to be electric. For me on the offensive side of the ball, Jay, I'm going with Eddie Pierre-Louis. Speaking of electric, speaking of speed, this is a man that's got speed, running track for his high school that kept him out of spring ball last year. And so kind of stunted his development as a freshman because he just got to campus in the summertime, was playing catch up physically, mentally. And when he got into a game, we liked what we saw, right? I mean, the dude was really trying to punish some people. Now that he's got a full off season with the Oklahoma Sooners in the strength and conditioning program, in the nutrition program, understanding the playbook, and being really ready to compete for a job, I think this is the year we're going to see the Eddie Pierre-Louis breakout.
I agree. I think that he was one that I know they wanted to play a lot more last year, but he didn't come in the spring. So that means that physically he wasn't there. Because also remember, Eddie Pierre-Louis, also ran track. So when you got a guy that does track and field, literally runs as well as do all the other events around track and field, plus Tampa Catholic, the school he went to, doesn't allow early graduations. They stick to their schedule 100%. So because of that, he didn't get to come in early as you would have liked him to. And if he was able to enroll early, I honestly think you would have saw him rotate a lot more. I don't think they would have redshirted him at all last season. You would have seen a lot more of his play, probably on that left side with Fabichi Wewu. And so I know that the expectation is Eddie's probably going to be on the right where Fabichi was, but Fabichi has an opportunity to get that Bill Beatonbow bump year 2 that we saw out of John Mateer. I mean, a lot of people had their, quote unquote issues, not Mateer, with McKay Matauer. But I know a lot of people had their issues with Matauer in some capacities, but at the same time, Matauer stepped up big time as the season progressed, and then he got ejected and was fist bumping folks on the sideline. So everybody got excited about the personality. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I want a guy that's going to stick up for his teammates. And I think that Fabichi Wewu was on that track. But Eddie Pierre-Louis is a very good pick for someone that could be a massive breakout this season because he's just good. And then you get some GT counter going. Ooh, I don't want to see that freight train running at me at full speed.
Yeah, and when you've got some experience at center in Troy Everett, it allows you to maybe go with a young guy. Even if he's not experienced at left guard. On defense, Jay, who are you looking at?
Defensive side of the ball there was a lot of options because the one thing that Oklahoma did do was play like tops in the country in the amount of freshman snaps that they had for the second year in a row. Remember, like our first year, last season in 2023, when we won 10 games, we had played the most like young snaps from freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and true sophomores. I think at anybody in the country at that time, like we was well over 8,000 snaps. So we were playing a lot of young players. Kind of a testament, John, to what I was saying before, that I believe that this staff really likes their recruits, the ones that they actually handpicked instead of searching for players in the transfer portal. And that was a testament in that how many we played. Well, this year we didn't have much of a choice due to dealing with a lot of injuries. And so we played a lot more freshmen. And you had a couple freshmen that ended up in the starting lineup and they started to do some things, in Jaden Jackson as well as Eli Bowen. But I think the second year guy that's ready to make that breakout, David Stone. I think that he's going to be one I know he's training his butt off and he's ready to get out there. The big thing was, of course, not only knowing the plays, but getting his technique down and getting his size up. I think David comes in well over 300 pounds, still has his burst and speed, has that twitchiness that he needs to have to get to not only stuff the middle, but get past people. And, he's probably worked with Gerald McCoy a little bit to understand some of the technique. I'm going to give it to David Stone. I think he's going to be the one that's going to finally break out for us.
It's going to be an exciting year for him, I think, because especially just getting to stay in that rotational role, and Oklahoma's going to be able to pick their spots when they deploy him, because Grayson Halton is going to be one of your kind of top 3 technique defensive tackles. We know Jaden Jackson will play both nose and 3 technique defensive tackle. And so if you want to just roll David Stone out there in pass rush situations and just let him go to work, him and Grayson Halton on a 3rd and long situation, that's going to be fire, because both those guys got great get-offs. They can get off the line of scrimmage quickly. They play with physicality, and they're quick. They can dart through the interior and get into the backfield. So, yeah, I think everybody's hoping for the David Stone breakout, right? Because that's been the dude that everybody's been waiting on for years, not just as a freshman, but even when he was back in high school, even back going, when he was still in Oklahoma high school prep football. Mm-hmm. Everybody was excited about the potential of having Oklahoma with David Stone in the middle of their defensive line. I'm going with Michael Boganowski. I think you could go with him or Reggie Powers III at safety, but I'm going to go with Bogue just because I'm excited to see Brandon Hall and Brent Venables unleash his physicality on the SEC.
Yeah. And that he's going to go through a run through a wall for anybody. And just his style of play, it shows that he wants it. He looks like he really wants it. And I'm hoping that he gets it. I am with you on that. He has a great potential in moving around that safety room and playing both spots and just being available to just light somebody up. I'm waiting to see when they go ahead and throw him in there and say, hey, man, go ahead, do what you like to do. Get that first personal foul of the season to set the tone in this Michigan game. I'm hoping that they put Boganowski in there for something like that. Just let him just go get a good big hit on somebody and then set the tone for the rest of the game. And I think he has the capabilities of doing that. And so I expect to see a lot of him on the field, a combination of him with probably Robert Spears-Jennings on the blitz. Ooh, it's going to be fun to watch him play.
Yeah, especially in that Michigan game when the Wolverines are going to try to run the football. Boganowski's going to get a lot of snaps because they're going to want that size, that physical presence in there playing in the box. And you can put Robert Spears-Jennings as your free safety, kind of man in the middle third. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting second-year guys because you can also talk about Taylor Tatum. I think he's going to fix his fumbling issues. You can talk Danny Okoye and what he's going to be able to do. Nigel Smith. There's a bunch of really good second-year players that are going to have significant roles for this team in 2025. One guy that needs some help, though, in 2025, that's John Mateer. We're all real bullish on him, but he can't do it alone.
Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are always taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So John Mateer was the big transfer portal addition for the Oklahoma Sooners, coming over with Ben Arbuckle, creating the offensive perfection edition, I guess, if you want to say it that way. But, you look over at CBS Sports, they asked 10 biggest questions for spring ball. And one of those was, does Oklahoma have enough around John Mateer for that to make a difference, Jay?
Yeah, that has been the question that's posed and asked like crazy. You got John Mateer, so you picked up one of the top player in the transfer portal. And then whenever you started looking at the rest of the pickups, people ask the questions of, okay, did you do enough to put enough help around what, John Mateer is going to have to do? And quite frankly, I do feel like we have the weapons for it. The one thing that I've always seen, John, when it comes to the transfer portal is that one position that isn't as, I guess you could say, that hard to find really good talent, wide receiver. And as long as you get guys and you put them in the right spot, they have the speed, they have the talent, but they just need the guidance, you're typically pretty fine. And so John Mateer has, of course, a plethora of wide receivers joining him in Josiah Martin, Keontez Lewis, going all the way down. You've got Giovanni Gibson, and they've added to me a bunch of wide receivers, Isaiah Satania, that have the experience of going out there and getting themselves open and making it happen. Plus, he still also got young guys he can help develop with Michael Hawkins, like a Zion Kearney, as well as Ivan Carrion. And I am really excited about Elijah Thomas, the true freshman. Believe me, I watched him at Dakota. I talk about him a lot, and I am not selling you a lemon here. Kid is going to be special. So I think that John Mateer has the weapons he needs. I think the offensive line will be very much improved because they're more veteran. They're actually played a lot of snaps, failed as well as succeeded in a lot. And then he brought back all the veterans that he needed in his running back room. So, John, I think Mateer should be fine. As long as he's out there being the leader that we think he is, should be fine. What about you?
Yeah, man, I think the experience that he brings adds a lot to it. You bring in Ben Arbuckle as offensive coordinator. I think that matters too. We saw how much the relationship between Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby mattered when they came to Oklahoma. Now, Dylan Gabriel had a lot more talent to work with his first and second year at Oklahoma, when he's throwing to, Marvin Mims and then Nick Anderson and Jaleel Farouk and things like that. I say talent as in, the star talent.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at what Ben Arbuckle has done as an offensive coordinator, and you combine that with the guys that he's brought in. And I know everybody's made the jokes about, hey, it's FCSU. You can only go get FCS guys. You're only going to Kennesaw State, whatever. But if Ben Arbuckle looks at these guys and thinks that their scheme fits, then who am I to argue with him, right? Now we'll see if it works. But you also got to include the return of a Deion Burks, who's coming back from injury and hopefully is able to maintain an actually healthy season in 2025. And if that happens, I think we're looking at the breakout that we expected to see from him last year. Because
exactly,
the offense is going to be one that is friendly to quarterbacks and wide receivers and helping them get open. You bring back a running back room that has a lot of experience now, both with Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk and Taylor Tatum and Xavier Robinson. That group of four, they have a lot of snaps under their belt now. And so, listen, it's going to be a wait and see. We're going to have to see how they perform against Michigan, who's going to have one of the better defenses in the country in 2025. But if they go and they win that game and say they put up a 27 spot, I think everybody's going to feel pretty good about where they're going. Even if they win the game 24-17 or 24-20, just go win. But I think it'll give everybody a little bit of confidence, a little bit of assurance that this thing is going to be okay moving forward.
Exactly. And as long as they just got to give us something. I mean, honestly, the Illinois State game is going to tell you about the same, right? If the team comes out there and they just blow it out of the water, then you're like, okay, I feel more comfortable now. I can calm my nerves.
I mean, I expect them to blow Illinois State out. Like,
I mean, right.
If they don't put up 60 on them, I'll be concerned.
100% agree. And that, to me, is probably the best measuring stick in preparation for the Michigan game, which we think that Michigan is the measure. But if they go up in their first game against Illinois State and the offense looks clunky, yeah, it's going to be a long season. We're all going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to try to tell you all to be patient while at the same time be like, nah, you got problems. But if they go out there, like you said, and they put up a 50 spot, a 60 spot, and the offense is just humming early, honestly, if they put up 40 points in like the first quarter or something ridiculous and then they don't really score, they probably score like maybe one more time after that, I have no complaints. Because then at that point, I'm like, yeah, please slow it down. Go ahead, preserve bodies.
Yeah.
Or just go out there and play all the young guys and see if they can do it. But my expectation, similarly to you, is that Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle will have this team at a point of urgency. They understand the urgency of having to dominate every single game, especially because we're bringing back so much returning production on offense, while also, defense, we don't have the number 3 team in returning production this time. We're around 46, but that's still a pretty high number and a good percentage of returning talent that the defense should, to me, still really carry us throughout the year.
Yeah, and if the defense is carrying you, you're not relying on your offense to have to go score 40 points a game. And that's where I'm at, is that the offense isn't going to have to. Now, if they go and they do it, and you get the defense that you're expecting, you've got a college football playoff, potentially a national title contender. But even if they just go and score 30 points a game, 30 to 34 points a game, and they're averaging that in SEC play, I think you're going to be a really good team. Because the problem that you had in 2024 is your offense, if you take the defensive touchdowns away, your offense only averaged 13 points per game in SEC play. Obviously not going to get it done. They've got to be closer to the 27 to 30 points per game in conference play to be a contender. Because again, the defense is going to be good enough. And with the turnover you're seeing across the country, or at least across the conference at quarterback, I don't necessarily expect those offenses to be humming. I expect Oklahoma's to be, because that's the expectation at Oklahoma, is you have really, really good offense. But so much of it is going to be that balanced approach in that, hey, we've got a good defense. Let's also make sure we're playing some ball control football in addition to our up-tempo air raid style of play that we want to have on offense as well. So I think the offense is going to be good, but the proof is going to be in the pudding.
Yep.
And I know some of you doomers out there have been waiting 10 minutes for us to say that, but that's really going to be what it is. Like, we can be optimistic about it, but they've got to go perform on the football field. It's not going to matter if you've got potential. You got to go perform at this point. Agree. How much is Wes Goodwin going to help Oklahoma and Brent Venables? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. So the Oklahoma Sooners added a few defensive analysts and assistants this offseason to try and bolster that unit after the loss of Zach Alley to West Virginia. Brent Venables brought in another former protege, so to speak, in Wes Goodwin, who was the Clemson defensive coordinator, to be a defensive analyst for this team. And so, Jay, how much do you think that that's going to benefit Brent Venables as he takes over play calling duties for the Sooners?
I know we all recall watching the Clemson Tigers defense when Brent Venables was running it. And one of the people there that was running his, it was a senior defensive assistant with Brent Venables there. And so he was the guy that was basically running things with BV, game planning and preparation there at Clemson. And then he became the, DC linebacker coach right when Brent Venables left. But I think Wes is going to give a massive boost because he's going to be able to give someone that not only that Brent Venables trust to help with planning and just making sure things are together, he'll be able to get that linebacker room solid. Also, Wes is really good at recruiting. Like, he's a pretty solid recruiter, and he's brought in some really good talent when he was there at Clemson, and he helped with getting some really good talent at Clemson. And so it's smart to me that Brent decided that, okay, if I'm going to call plays, I need to bring in some folks that I really trust around my scheme on top of who we have on staff at linebacker to help out. And then the Nate Drilling hire was just a good icing on the cake of bringing another young guy that he hopes can be a protege and can grow and develop underneath him long term. And so, John, when I look at the Wes Goodwin pickup, it makes me ask the question, how heavily involved will he be in when it comes to the play calling? Because I know Brent Venables is going to call plays, but it feels like his goal is at some point passing that bad boy down. But I understand this year, Brent Venables needs to call it for his job. It's his job's on the line at this point. He needs to go out there and have a stellar year so everyone's like, okay, Oklahoma should be still in good hands. But Wes Goodwin's a good hire, man. It's a really good hire. It's good to bring in analysts that worked on defenses that were actually good. He may not have been the greatest last year. I mean, they were okay. They still made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But you need to bring in guys that have had and seen success and can point to everybody and say, hey, when we were together, we had the top defense in the country a couple of times, and this is how we do it.
Well, and you see so many times coordinators, they have some success, and then they have a bit of a drop off, and they kind of need a change of scenery a little bit, and then they go and they have an opportunity to be a defensive analyst or an offensive analyst and sit and just kind of watch and regroup a little, and then they come back, and it's like they're reborn a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lot of what happened at with the Nick Saban rehabilitation program, right? Exactly. You saw all kinds of coordinators go there and either be the coordinator under him or be an analyst and regroup, redefine their scheme, create some new priorities, things like that. And then they take off. And so I think it's a good idea for Brent Venables, especially as he takes over the defensive play calling, to have people around him that are just good assistants, because you're only as good as the people around you, but also people that he feels like, okay, if everything goes well and we have a successful season this year and our defense takes off, what can I do? Are there people that I can pass the baton to? Yeah. Okay. It seems like Brandon Hall's one of those guys that doesn't really want to be that guy. He seems content in his, assistant role. Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, could they be, Jay Valai, could they be guys maybe down the road? But as we're seeing on the offensive side of the ball, you've got to be developing guys to take over as a play caller at some point, because what you're seeing on offense is, okay, 2 years of Jeff Lebby, he gone. Okay, the Seth Luttrell thing didn't work out. He gone. And then you bring in Ben Arbuckle. Well, what happens if he's gone in a couple of years? Where do you go from there? You don't have an answer to the offensive coordinator question because you don't have anybody that you're developing on that side of the ball. Maybe it's Kevin Wilson as you bring in as an offensive analyst, but you've got to bring in guys like Wes Goodwin and Nate Drilling to provide you an opportunity to pass the baton to when you feel like, okay, the defense is in good hands. We've got this thing rolling, ready to go, especially this year after losing Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman and Ethan Downs. I need to have a little bit bigger voice because it's a big year for me as a head coach. But if everything goes well next year, I can pass it on. And Wes Goodwin, he's got a lot of experience, and as you mentioned, a good recruiter. And I think it also helps Brent Venables because either Brent Venables can be in town focusing on installing defense and developing defense, and Wes Goodwin can be on the recruiting trail finding the guys that he knows Brent Venables likes for his defense, or vice versa. Wes Goodwin can be in the classroom working install, teaching the players, while Brent Venables is out on the recruiting trail looking for the guys that he likes for his defense.
I'm wondering how much road time is Wes and Nate going to do when it comes to the recruiting portion of it. I'm curious to see if they're going to end up at some point taking over most of it from Brent Venables and let BV kind of sit back and really focus on the high stakes top players. But I don't know if Brent Venables could even let that go. He doesn't seem like he has the personality where he can pull back, especially when it comes to recruiting, because I know he loved the kids. But
and the parents, he loves building relationships.
He does building those relationships, and the parents adore him. I know players that have left and said, we didn't leave because of Brent Venables. It was just we needed an opportunity to really play, but we love BV. So I'm wondering on that what it's going to look like on the recruiting trail for those two. But we know, like I said, we know Wes Goodwin can definitely recruit with the best of them. He's done that in his days at Clemson, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't have any Clemson guys that didn't try to follow Wes, or I wonder if BV tried to, or he actually blocked it, because that's been one of the main contentions I've had with BVs. I understand that Brent Venables didn't want to be that guy that took players, or whatnot, while at the same time, the most important thing to understand is you need to win games.
Yeah.
So
it's all in the game.
It's all in the game. Now, granted, I guess for BV, if, God forbid, knock on wood, things does not work out here, he's got a job right back at Clemson. He can move right back to probably the same house in Clemson, South Carolina. But hopefully not, while at the same time, keep maintaining a relationship kind of helps with that kind of stuff.
No, it's true. It's true. Big basketball stuff happening for Oklahoma on Wednesday night. Yes. They're going to host Missouri, a top 25 Missouri team. Got to have a win. I mean, you're in must-win territory. Every game has been for a while, but you're definitely in must-win if you want to make the NCAA tournament. Right now, they're sitting outside in both Joe Lunardi's bracketology as well as USA Today's Sports bracketology as well. I don't know, man. They got this one. They got Texas. And I feel like they've got to win at least one of these two games.
At minimum. And they do that, they're probably going to be pulled in. They have one of the highest number of quad one wins, as they call it, for teams on the bubble. So that's reason why they're really in that battle with North Carolina. And people are upset, like, oh, how North Carolina, Oklahoma's only won like 4 games this year or 5 games this year or whatnot since the calendar year started. And that's the thing everybody points out is that North Carolina has not played anybody that will be considered quad one. They're undefeated in 2, 3, and 4, but they ain't won anybody in quad one. So Oklahoma has 5 of those wins. And if they can continue, they can get one more, which I think Missouri will probably be considered quad 2. That's probably going to put them in the tournament no matter what, regardless of how they perform in the SEC playoffs and all of that in the conference tourney. So I hope they can go out there and pull an upset. I mean, Missouri just lost to Vanderbilt, so you go ahead and lock in, win that game, get your revenge.
Yep.
They get into the tournament, man. I honestly, I'll still be surprised they make it, but a win tonight gets them in.
You played Missouri well the first time, and you had a chance to beat them. It just kind of slipped away at the end. So if you can go get a win, that'd be huge, because you go on the road to Austin and face a struggling Texas team, but still a Texas team that beat you earlier this year. So right. I don't know how that goes. But the women, they get going in the SEC tournament on Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, awaiting the winner of Georgia and Arkansas in that kind of opening round game. We'll see. Listen, if the women are able to win their first game, then they'll have to face South Carolina, which is a team that rolled them earlier this year in conference play. And they're the defending back-to-back national champion. They're a really good team. It'll be a good litmus test once again for the Sooners, who have been playing their best basketball of late. They've won 7 in a row heading into the SEC tournament. And so that's going to be a big opportunity for them. They're looking like they're a team headed for a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament, which will allow them an opportunity to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, which is a great opportunity for us to really show our support and get out there and back this team. So a lot of fun basketball that's going to be happening over the next few days. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, also on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. And the show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But for Jay Smith, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer
Sooner. Come on, guys. You got to win this game against Missouri. We need it.
Gotta have it.